And we are live from the Gold Coast, Australia. Welcome back, everyone, to Priceless Takes episode 57. I am your host, Luka Price, and joining me today, once again, in what will be another fantastic episode, my two panellists, Mr. Tyson McMullen and Mr. Oscar Hardcastle. Boys, how are we today?
Very
Very
good,
swell,
thank you.
thank
Very
you.
good, very good.
Well, listen, I'm sure both of you are feeling better after the Denver Nuggets victory, considering we all had the Nuggets picked over the Timberwolves, and they did make a comeback, taking the series lead 3-2 with Game 6 in Minnesota in a few days' time. That's where we'll start today, guys. It was the second of the doubleheader with the New York Knicks beating the Indiana Pacers earlier, but we'll get into that in our second topic of the day. The Nuggets win 3 games in a row against the Timberwolves, 112 to 97 in Denver tonight. Jokic showing everyone why he is the MVP. 40 points, 13 boards, 7 assists, 68% field goal shooting. Along for the ride, Murray, KCP, and Gordon all added 16 plus points. Anthony Edwards, by far his worst game of the series, 18 points on 5 of 15 shooting. He's been averaging 30 points up until today's game. Minnesota cut the lead down to 10 points in the middle of the fourth quarter, but Denver came home. Minnesota's first 3-game losing streak of the season. Guys, what is the biggest reason Denver made this comeback? I know the whole of the NBA world pretty much was like crowning Minnesota the NBA champions 7 days ago. I think we were I'm sure a lot of people were skeptical, but I felt we were pretty skeptical of Minnesota and we believed in Denver on this show. So, Tyson, I'm going to ask you first, what's the biggest reason Denver's made this comeback and now is in a position to clinch the series?
I think they just come to realize like they are the reigning champions, like it's a 7-game series. Like you lose the first 2, it's not the end of the world. Obviously it's home court, but they came on the road very strong, took advantage of especially today, took advantage of no Mike Conley at the home court. And then as well as like all of their starters just doing their role, Aaron Gordon putting up 27 the other day, and then everyone's putting
Except
15 plus
MPJ.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, MPJ, it's 4 points every game, something like that. But
Well, KCP made up for it.
Yeah.
KCP
100%.
definitely made up for it. But yeah, it's just I think they just have to realize like who they are, like arguably the best team in the NBA, reigning champions. Like you got the MVP. Like I think now they're just built up enough motion to keep going and really taking advantage of missing key players for the Minnesota team. So yeah.
I think it comes down to a couple of things. Obviously, Jokic had a Jokic type game, but Denver's defense today on Minnesota was absolutely unbelievable, keeping Ant to 18 points and I think what it was 9 at the half or something like that, and he was
Yeah.
shooting one for terrible
7
shooting.
at
Yeah,
one
1 for
point.
7 at one point. The defense was unbelievable from Denver. Aaron Gordon was getting blocks, Braun was getting blocks. The defense was unbelievable, and also the role players, as Tyson said, the role players doing their thing. Aaron Gordon fired up. He got benched, and then he came back. He got benched because he was having a bit of a shocker, and he came back and was dunking on everyone. And so I think it's those two things mostly, but also Jokic having a spectacular game, as we know he can do. And I think that Minnesota lacked that same presence that they had in those first 2 games. That they lacked that. Even the defense was so good in those first 2 games, and that's kind of stopped, which is weird when Gobert was back. He was telling Kyle Anderson to guard.
He was.
To guard Jokic, which is, you're the defensive player of the year. You need to take that role that you're going to defend the best player in the league. And he just didn't. So I think in Minnesota, they lacked something out there. And I think Denver just played their game beautifully. So,
Yeah. Yeah, well, with respect to Rudy Gobert, if I had my opposing matchup shoot 8 of 9 against me for the entirety of the game, I'd probably want someone else to guard him too. So this seems to happen every year with Rudy Gobert. We saw it when he was in Utah. And he anchors the defense. But at some point, we really got to ask ourselves, how good is he as an individual defender? Because it seems year after year after year, he's just getting cooked in the playoffs. And granted, most people, or pretty much everyone, will get cooked by Jokic. But also, you are the defensive player of the year. If there's anybody who should give him the best battle, it should be you. It should not be your 6'7" power forward who is normally your backup, but is in the lineup today because your point guard is injured. And I think that did really hurt Denver, because I think that meant Ant had a lot more point guard responsibilities, and I think he wasn't able to get into rhythm, especially today, and get his shots. But also, I don't know if you watched the entirety of the game, but Mike Malone in his third quarter interview said that they were just throwing everything they had at Anthony Edwards. And I think even what happened in the first two games, and even when he did have a big game in game 4, I think they are respecting him a lot more now, and they really are focused on containing him because they have the pieces, they have the length to throw at him. And today, I think a combination of that, as well as the fact that the offense was different with Mike Conley out. Mike Conley is your traditional floor general. He gets the offense going. He settles everyone down. And today, they didn't have that. He was out with an Achilles. His status is unknown for Game 6, but I don't see them winning Game 6 without him, and I don't see how without him they can make the necessary adjustments to win another game. But in terms of Denver, I guess the biggest adjustment and the most obvious adjustment they made, and what they talk about, is Aaron Gordon bringing up the ball, because Minnesota's defense was like hounding the Denver Nuggets when Jokic and Murray were bringing up the ball. And with Aaron Gordon bringing up the ball, they have allowed to get their offense set. Jokic gets the ball at the top of the key, and that's when the top of the three-point line, and that's when the offense starts. So, along with that, Jokic has just found that second gear, and they've created ways, Mike Malone and the coaching staff, to turn him back into the facilitator, because he had the assist tonight, whereas we've seen in the games, not only he hasn't had the assist, but he's been averaging 3 turnovers a game in his last 7 playoff games. So tonight, he was 0 turnovers to 13 assists, and he found ways to get going too. Now, the other thing, that Denver shot the lights out from 3, 47% three-point to 31%. Denver only made one more 3, but the fact that they were more efficient from beyond the arc meant that they had better looks inside the paint. And I thought defensively overall, you guys just completely hit the head on the nail. It reminded me of what Minnesota did to them in Game 2, and they said, you're coming back into our house. Now, the unsung hero, my man Christian Braun, who you mentioned, Oscar, 28 minutes off the bench, 4 of 8 shooting, but a plus 11. That was the third highest in the game. So I wish Rubes was here to hear this, because Rubes, for all he loves his Jared Vanderbilt and his impact in the Lakers series, which never happened. Christian Braun.
Did you see his blocks? His blocks
salute my hat. He was everywhere. Christian Braun was everywhere.
Crazy.
I know. Christian Braun was everywhere. And Mike Malone has the faith in him as a second-year player to give them 28 minutes off the bench. It almost looked like Bruce Brown was out there. They have the same, well, they say you say their last name the same. So
is it Brown?
Yeah, that's how they say it on the telecast. But I want to throw it back to you, Oscar. Well, one, I want to know, do you believe Minnesota can come back realistically? And what do you think they need to do to give themselves the best chance of coming back?
Well, I think, first of all, no, I don't think they can come back. But if the things they need to do to come back is, they came out in those first 2 games with a chip on their shoulder, going into Denver and, balled.
Shocking the world.
Yeah, shocked the world.
Yeah,
so
shocked the Nuggets.
I think that now Denver has had that time to think about what they're actually doing and change some things. I think that's exactly what Minnesota needs to do. Change something. I know it's hard when Mike Conley's out, but I think they need to go into the next game, change something, shock Denver again, and come out with that with that chip on your shoulder and say, well, we ain't going to go out like this. I know you're the defending champs. We ain't going to go out like this. They lost this game. That swagger that they had in those first 2 games, they didn't have that, because a big part of that was them locking up Anthony Edwards. But I think they need to come out with a change, Anthony Edwards needs to show that swagger, lead his team, and even with Mike Conley out, probably he's going to be out next game, I'm assuming. Need to come out and you know, spark themselves and get off to that amazing start that they did, and find a way to stop Aaron Gordon up the floor. But I don't think they're gonna come back. No, I think Denver's
I agree with Oscar. I don't think they will come back, but will I be surprised if they do? A little bit, but not really.
The thing is, you will be. You will be like the first two games.
The thing is, but like
they're gonna shock you again. That's what Minnesota gonna do.
Like Denver, like reigning champs for a reason. Like they've taken control. They've shown their expertise in the playoffs. Like being down 2, no biggie for them. Win 3 in a row. They've taken control of the series, but arguably the best mentality in the NBA since Kobe, Anthony Edwards. Like he's not going to give up just like that, you know. So that's what I'm saying. Like surprise factor. Obviously shocked because like you're defending champions, but like just that earned to like the drive to, you know, beat the defending champions. Like I think Ant has it, but isn't the possibility very, very, very low?
I think if they're gonna win next game, they have to, as we both said, they have to do something that's gonna shock us because they have to shock Denver. They have to go out there and shock Denver like they did in the first 2 games. Otherwise, I think Denver is going to dominate.
They might have to tell Gobert to sit out again. I don't know.
Yeah, legit.
Or unless he spaces the floor for them.
Well, I think
Cat was balling.
yeah.
Cat was
You raise a valid point, because what does it say about Rudy Gobert if the last time they won a game was when he was out, and that is probably the best game they played all season?
And
like,
also, it's probably not a good look that you're, you know, it's probably a good look and a bad look, but Rudy scored 18 points today.
7 of 7.
7 of 7. Is it a good look that that's the guy that you're feeding instead of someone like Ant or someone like Cat that can space the floor and get you that better production? Because they were just feeding him in the middle, and he was scoring because Jokic's defense isn't, you know,
it was probably because they planted the absolute crap out of Anthony Edwards.
That's exactly what it was. It was like a kind of a lot of times they were like, and then they kind of just dumped it down. And a lot of the times he is open because he's only a threat around the rim. So that kind of for today was a lot of their safety net in a way, because they were getting run off the court. They were getting hounded.
What I'm saying is, it's probably not a good look if you're Minnesota. That's your main option.
No, you're completely right, because he's not there for the offensive production. I completely agree.
Yeah. And I
completely agree.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, they're going to do something with Rudy, because it just didn't look the same out there. It didn't look the same out there at all.
It didn't. Listen, if I'm being completely honest, I thought Minnesota had a bit more to give in this series. And I guess Mike Conley, I was shocked when I saw that. Similar to how I was shocked when all of a sudden Donovan Mitchell just got a left calf strain and the Cavs are just going to go home now. Like, all of these injuries, maybe that's me for not keeping up with it, but all these injuries kind of just seem to be coming out of nowhere. And then, like, people aren't playing. Like, key people aren't playing. So, right before game time. So, I really don't think Minnesota, no matter what they do, I just don't see them coming back, because Denver's role players are just feeding. And this is the problem. The only way they have a chance is if they can force Jokic to only be a scorer. Because the way that Jokic is getting everyone else involved now, this is when Denver is unbeatable. Because if Anthony Edwards and Jokic come to a standstill, which is basically what happened in Game 4, the others from Denver, they bring it over the top. Because Jaden McDaniels, when they were down by 10 points, Jaden McDaniels jacked up back-to-back 3-pointers in 2 possessions, and before you know it, Denver's back up by 16. He was 1 of 4 from 3-pointers. Similar, Cat had a good game today, but he was 2 for 5. Anthony Edwards was 1 of 5. Naz Reid was 0 of 3. Like, they've got to stop jacking up 3-pointers for one, okay? But also, I just think that Denver now has found their gear, and it was almost the wake-up call they needed. And now I think they're going to go here and go to Minnesota and win, because I don't think they want to come back to a Game 7. They want to move on to the next round. And I think Minnesota has had ample opportunity to throw different looks at them. They've had ample opportunity, and I don't see what they can reasonably do that all of a sudden is just going to turn the tide in this series. Because I had Minnesota winning this game. I thought Minnesota was going to come out today, and they were going to win this game, and they were going to put everything they had into this Game 5. Okay? Now, the way Denver played today, I don't think Mike Conley makes them win. I still think Denver wins today, even if Mike Conley plays, which is why I don't think they're going to win. I had Minnesota winning this game, and then I had Denver winning the last 2 and winning in 7, like I predict. I now think Denver's going to win in 6. But Anthony Edwards, and this is what I want to get into, when you talk about his comparisons, we saw a young MJ drop 62 on the Celtics, but what happened? They got swept. And this is something in the NBA where we see the individual brilliance of a young player, of a young superstar. But unfortunately, when you come up against a well-oiled machine like the Denver Nuggets, like back in those days the Boston Celtics, Kobe was different because Kobe had Shaq. So Kobe was able to flourish with another superstar, which brings me to something I want to run past you guys. And I know we're talking a bit off topic here, but just say, there's been rumors for a while that Giannis might be unhappy in Milwaukee, and they've been flirting with it for a little bit. They've been talking about him and Steph for ages now going to Golden State. What are the chances if Giannis has had enough with the coaching debacles? He's unhealthy now. They haven't gotten over the hump. What are the chances we see him and that? I'm just thinking from a basketball fan, how good of a duo would that be? Like that, when you're talking about a young Kobe, and I'm not saying Anthony Edwards is a young Kobe, but like that's the comparison, right? But we'll talk about it for a minute because it's off topic. But I'm just flirting with the idea.
It would be
First of all, it'd be insane. But also, the difference is that Shaq went to LA. I don't think Giannis is going to Minnesota. I don't think Giannis wants to.
I'd say it's better than Milwaukee. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, it's not that different to where he is right now. They're like 2 hours away from each other.
This is what I'm saying. I think he wants to go to a market. If he'd rather go to a market.
Well, I don't think he. I think if he cared about the market, he wouldn't have signed the extension. If he cared about the market that much,
that's different.
Giannis wants to win.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think that. I also think that he'd rather link up with someone like a Steph Curry than in the Bay Area than Anthony Edwards in Minnesota. That's my personal opinion.
Or just go
I disagree.
down the road to the Lakers with LeBron and AD.
Giannis has been living in bloody Milwaukee
I disagree.
for his whole life. He's not
If
going
I
to
was,
go to Minnesota.
this will be another unpopular opinion. I completely disagree. If I was Giannis right now, I would rather play with Anthony Edwards than Steph Curry.
I would too, personally.
Because, one, Anthony Edwards is younger, okay, and Minnesota is an ascending team, and we don't know, obviously Steph's individual brilliance is great, but we don't know the Warriors' future, what they're like. And, well, I mean, they have Karl Anthony Towns to a big deal. That would obviously be the centerpiece of the trade.
Rudy
But the
Gobert.
thing is, the problem logistically,
mil.
the problem with that is they gave up 4 first-round picks in the Rudy Gobert trade. So that's logistically the problem. But, I mean, they have plenty of young players they can offer. They can offer Jaden McDaniels. They can offer Nickeil Alexander. I think out of a lot of the teams that could go after Giannis, I think with the players Minnesota have, they have one of the more attractive packages they could offer compared to a team like the Lakers. Or the Warriors, for that matter.
I love the idea, and I think as a fan, I would love to see it because I think it would be the craziest thing in the NBA. But I just don't think it's going to happen.
I think Minnesota is still, and I was talking, David for the podcast audience knows David through the NFL. Oscar and Tyson, you know him too, but he's also big into his NBA. We don't really have him on for the NBA, but he for the punters out there, put out a tip at the middle of the season for Minnesota to win the championship at $31.
Yeah,
And
he
I
told
told
me
him,
that.
I think it's a year too early, or maybe 2 years too early. But I think it's a year too early
And you're damn
because we
right.
see, like I said, when I said with NBA players, like you climb up. So last year you had Minnesota, they get beat by Denver in the first round. They electrify everyone in the first round. They sweep the Kevin Durant Suns. They give Denver a really good fight. Next year, I think, is their year where they ascend. And I honestly, when you talked about Kobe, Tyson, that was it really just popped into my brain now, the whole Giannis thing. But it was a bit of a light bulb moment. And I think there is a greater chance than one might think with everything that's going on in Milwaukee right now. Because I tell you, it's not good in Milwaukee, the way that
Dame's
they've
not happy.
exited the last two
He's
playoffs.
made it clear
Okay.
on Twitter.
Okay, and especially if Dame wants out, I don't think Giannis and Chris Middleton's decline. Anyway, we do need to move on, but this is something we can talk about more in the off season. But you heard it here first,
Luka, when it
ESPN.
happen-
If you
when
guys
it-
are listening,
Luka, when it happens, you're the first guy. You're the first guy everyone's gonna go to. So you called it.
Oh.
we'll clip and
we'll
tag
come back to this.
ESPN.
Yeah, we'll come
We'll
back
clip because I think the one thing we can all agree is, I think that they've done really well this series, but they still need more.
Oh,
And
100%.
they do still need more. And particularly I look at Cat, who he played well today. He played well in the first two games, but I don't think he's the
Is he that
second best
second guy?
player on a
Yeah.
championship team. And I think you move off of him because you've established that Anthony Edwards is your guy. And with someone like a Giannis, like Chris Middleton hit the big shots in the championship game. Anthony Edwards will still be that guy in the big moments, but they will anyway. We're going to move on because I want to talk about my Knicks. And Tyson, they're your Knicks too, but I think they've been my Knicks since the start of the season. Knicks Pacers. Knicks blow them out. What a response after the Pacers blew them out in Game 4. Still no OG Anunoby for the Knicks, which in my opinion makes this all the more impressive
Believe
for
it.
them. Brunson, fifth 40-point game of the playoffs. He finished with 44, 4 and 7, 18 of 35 field goals, just ticked over 50%. So still efficient. Alec Burks, sighting for him
balling.
today.
He's been
Sighting
balling.
for him today. He has been balling. Next man up. We heard Jalen Brunson talk about it. Burks, Josh Hart, and Deuce McBride, 53 points combined. Burks was 5 of 8 from 3. Hartenstein, the unsung hero of this game, 12 offensive rebound. This ties a Knicks record set by Charles Oakley. And the Pacers they nearly made a run. Well, they cut it down to 12. I believe it was in the middle of the
I
third
think I
quarter.
finished the game. I don't know.
Well, I believe it was in the middle of the third, and then they had another little run at the start of the fourth, and Jalen Brunson just said no, and Alec Burks also just said no, and Isaiah Hartenstein was just like, no. And before I throw it to you, Tyson, I talked about having a center that cannot rebound is a liability. And Miles Turner keeps proving me right because there is no way that you should be letting your opposing matchup get 12 offensive rebounds. Most centers can't even get 12 rebounds in a game, let alone 12 offensive rebounds. Like, that is absolute insanity. And if you look at the box score, the Knicks, I think, had plus 25 field goal attempts compared to the Pacers because of the second chance points. So, Tyson, overall thoughts on the game, but also what percentage do you give the Indiana Pacers of coming back and winning this series in 7?
I unfortunately didn't get to watch the game. I was at work, but just from like the box score and what I've seen, a lot of key pieces of the Knicks has stepped up. Like Burks has been balling. He's a pure bucket getter. He got what 20 points today, was it, or 18, and then one before
18, yeah.
15. Like that spark plug off the bench. Like obviously game 4 they didn't have OG. It was a bit of a shock to them. And then Tyrese was balling. They took advantage of it. But now I think they've just realized they've taken back control. You know, some plugs coming off the bench, just lighting it back up, and then letting them starters play another 40 minutes, you know? But yeah, Miles Turner, 2 rebounds the other day or something? Like, it's just, it's not a good look. Not a good look. And just, the Knicks are just a better team in my eyes. That's why I had them in 6. So percentage-wise, I give them about 15-20% chance.
Um,
Yeah.
That's more than I give him.
I th I think I think that I was very disappointed in them today. I think that with OG out, I thought Pascal was going to have a game because OG's been pestering him all series. I also believe that they can come back though, just because if we look at how this series has gone down, we look at last game, it was a blowout the other way. We look at this game, it's a blowout for New York, and then it was a close game the game before. It's been a very weird series in terms of the difference in scoring. We haven't seen one team dominate. We haven't seen like really close games. We've seen blowouts either way. I think today the issue with the Pacers was obviously obviously the Brunson scoring 44 and just saying I'm going to cook again, but also the bench points. You know, the Pacers are known for using their bench and really having those bench points, those bench stats, while the starters are off, and it just wasn't there today. So, do I think they can come back? Yes, because of how the series has panned out so far. I think there's been, one close game, one really close game, all
There's
series.
been a few. Game 1 was really close, and
It
game
was
3.
about 10 points though, wasn't it? It was close.
Maybe it was game 2. But no, I'm pretty sure. Well, they were close. Listen, games 1 and 2 were both like close in a sense. Like they weren't just blowouts. And game 3, Nembhard hit the most ridiculous
Oh, yeah,
three-pointer I've ever seen in my entire life. And the Knicks should have been up 3-0, which is why, Oscar, I think is a disgrace you picked the Pacers to begin with, because the Knicks are so much better than the Pacers. The only reason this is a series is because of the injuries, okay? And Oscar, my heart sunk.
disagree with that.
Oscar, my heart sunk to my stomach when you called me out on our last episode and said before game 2 that I have a curse, and OG Anunoby goes down the very next game with a hamstring injury, and Jalen Brunson all of a sudden has a phantom foot injury. Seriously, you had me like rethinking myself and the words that I speak on this show, and in saying that, there's no way the Pacers are coming
Yes, they
back
can. Yes,
in
they
this
can.
series.
Look at
No,
how this- look at how this series-
no.
Look at how this series has gone. If you look
I'm
at how
looking
this-
at how this series has gone, and I see that the Pacers have dropped 3 straight games at Madison Square Garden. So what does it tell me if the Pacers can force a game 7? It tells me they're just going to come back to New York and lose again. That's exactly what it tells me.
But the fact that you're saying that it's so unbelievably like it's under 20%. I don't know what percent you're going to give them. 5, 1, 2, 3. But it's not that low because the way this series has gone, there has been on either way, the Pacers side or the New York Knicks side has been blowouts. There's been close wins. It's been such a weird series, topsy-turvy series, that if the Pacers have those bench points, Tyrese Halliburton, if he does decently as he did in the previous win, I think they've got a chance of winning, and I think it's a lot more than what your percentage than you're thinking. I don't think it's unfathomable that the Pacers are going to come back here. And yes, if it goes to a game 7, it doesn't even matter. We don't know what's going to happen in a game 7 because it's a game 7. So.
I know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen in the game 7. The Knicks are going to grab a whole bunch more rebounds, just like they have in every other game in this series. And the Pacers, all of a sudden, it's like if you can't, rebounding is something that honestly is purely just effort and hustle. Okay, and throughout 5, it is. There is skill involved. Okay, but for the most part, if you want it more than the next guy, you will get the ball, okay? Isaiah Hartenstein's 12 offensive rebounds was not just purely because he has some immaculate ability to read exactly where the ball was going, okay? Because at the end of the day, Isaiah Hartenstein, he's around the rim, okay? These offensive rebounds, they weren't trickling out. They weren't going everywhere. The offensive rebounds he's getting are around the rim, okay? And I know in a game 7, when I look at what my team possesses, okay, first of all, I don't think it's going to even go to a game 7, but even if it does, I had Knicks in 6 for a reason. I think it's going to be in 6. But the injuries and the next man up mentality has underpinned this series for the Knicks, okay? And they have delivered game after game after game after game. So if you were going to tell me who is going to again deliver in a do-or-die game, the Knicks, who have constantly found ways every single time, they have been knocked to the ground by either injuries, by like an Andrew Nembhard Phantom 3 when he was 1 for 7 for the entire game. They continuously find ways to win, which is why I love the Pacers and how they have shocked everyone, and shocked me especially, and their fight and their determination. But they simply are outmatched against this Knicks team, and they are not going to win this series, okay? And Oscar, you've had, I respect that you tried to be different by picking the Pacers, even though I still think it's because you were salty they knocked out Philadelphia, but I still respect that you picked the Pacers, but it's just not happening. New York is advancing.
It's just the fact that you say it's impossible, but that they're going to win.
It's not impossible. It can be done. It can be done. I give it a less than 5% chance though, because it's as close to impossible as you can get in an NBA sense. It's not happening.
I think they're winning the next game. I think they're winning the next game.
Well, they might win the next game, but they're not going to win a Game 7 in Madison Square Garden. Not happening.
But as we know, Game 7s can be unpredictable. If they're going to win it, it's going to be in a Game 7. Obviously, because they have to win.
But this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. If they go to a Game 7, I think there is a massive chance that they can win it because of how unpredictable Game 7s are. That's what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, but when it comes to Game 7, you also got to look at the intangibles, okay? And on my team, the New York Knicks have the grit, the hustle, and the determination. They are my team. Yeah, the Clippers. I'm converting. I'm seriously going to consider it because I love this team. I love this team. They're at least my team. They're at least my team in the East. All right, they're at least my team in the East.
I think it should be your main team overall. I don't think Clippers are there. I'm being like, there's a new stadium going in next year. No stars want to be in there to grace the court.
Luka doesn't want to be a part of the wall.
Yeah.
No, well, listen. I don't think Tyson. Do you think the Pacers are going to force a Game 7 before we move on? I know Oscar obviously does. No, you think it's done in 6-2. Well, listen. Again, like I said, I will have the last word. Like I said, at least I've seen, even though New York got blown out in that Game 4, really they should be up 3-0. They should have been. They weren't. Great shot by Neymar. It was. I'm just saying, but sometimes that just happens. Sometimes it just happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it just happens. But I know New York is going to win. Okay,
that's like saying, LeBron in Miami when Ray Allen hit that shot. They should have been down.
But that's different because Ray Allen is an all-time great three-point shooter. Okay, this is Andrew Nembhard.
You can't say, they won because of a clutch shot, because it happens all the time.
Yeah, but time and place and player matters, okay?
Not when you hit the shot. Not when you hit the shot. Maybe when you miss. You're like, well, why was Nemrod shooting that? He's 0 for 8. But if he makes
I'll tell you why he was shooting it. Because Tyrese Halliburton got locked up and Andrew Nembhard got the ball with 3 seconds on the shot clock and just said, okay, goes in. I don't know if you watched it, but if you watched their reactions afterwards, everyone was like, I can't swear on this show, but you know exactly what they all looked at each other and said. Their own teammates. Great shot. But I'm just saying, I'm just letting you know that the Knicks are going to win, okay? They have 2 cracks. They have 2 bites at the apple, okay? I'm a lot more confident in my Knicks than I am in my Mavericks, to say the least. They dropped Game 4 to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Once again, Oscar is outnumbered by the two of us, picking the Thunder in this series. Tyson and I have the Mavericks, but OKC ties it up 2-2, winning Game 4, 100-96, after they also lost Game 3 by 4 points in a similar scoring game, 105-101. Shai stole the show, showed everyone why he is that guy. MVP. 34, 8 and 5 with 0 3-pointers made, only 1 attempted. Holmgren and Dort combined for 35 points. J-Dub tacked on 14. Doncic, he's had there's a lot of question marks with Doncic and Irving in this series. Doncic had a triple-double, but on 6 of 20 shooting, 2 of 9 3-pointers and 7 turnovers. Kyrie had 9 points on 4 of 11 field goals. Look, the Mavericks should have won this game. Like, they had it in their hands. And again, if you watched it, Doncic had a chance to tie the game with 10 seconds to go. He missed out on that. He's 68% shooting for the series. And Shai took it from them. He took it from them because he led the comeback, both defensively and offensively. And, yeah, I don't know what else to say. I'm going to throw it to you first, Tyson, and then I want to hear Oscar because, I want to hear Tyson's thoughts on the Mavericks so we have a bit of disparity. But the winner of Game 5 goes on to win 82% of the time. I should have mentioned that to you in the Knicks series as well, Oscar, but that is also the stat here. So, Tyson, who wins Game 5, and what are your thoughts on the last 2 games in Dallas since we last had an episode?
I still have the Mavs winning in Game 5, but I'm assuming you guys watched Game 4.
Yeah.
From the get, they look sharp. They almost had a 14-point lead in the first quarter. Like OKC couldn't buy a bucket. They were getting clamped. I thought it was GGs. I thought it was wraps first quarter, so I turned it off. Had to go uni, but the comeback. There's just the efficiency splits of the 2 stars, and you got PJ Washington, arguably like the best performer in the series for the Mavericks.
Turning into the bloody goat.
He's turning into a sniper. I'm very shocked that I did say in a few episodes back that the role players do have to step up for the Mavericks. But I will give a shout out to Rubes here because we were talking about it. Doncic at the moment is playing like a Wizards Westbrook, putting up numbers, but just in a really inefficient manner. It's just true though. Like,
it's not. I think that's a bit harsh.
But like, he's putting up numbers, but it's not really efficient. Like 1 from 9 from 3 again. Like it's his 3rd time doing it. Like it's not a good look. Free throws as well. Like the whole Mavericks team was it 10 from 23. It's a really
please
bad
don't
look.
get me started on that.
It's a really bad look. And then you're letting OKC get on a huge momentum shift in his takeover. Like, they started well. It's the main point is like you got to start well and then continue it from there. But if they're going to do that again, it's really, really tough. But I still think the Mavs can pull it back. I'm expecting something from Kyrie. I'm expecting a big thing from Kyrie.
You know, I think the Mavs played beautifully. The rest of the Mavs, other than the 2 stars, played beautifully this game, and I think that OKC. You know, Luka, last episode you said experience is going to win them this series.
I did, and I still believe it will.
Did you see what Shai did to them?
Well, Oscar, if I can respond, Shai does have playoff experience, but the rest of the team does not.
But
for the most part.
But what I'm talking about is as a team, this team does not have much playoff experience on it at all. And they led the comeback under Shai, yes. But you're talking about experience from Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, especially Kyrie Irving, who has been in the playoffs so many times, been in championship games. And I know this was only a game 4, but it wasn't there. This was a big game. You know, this was a big game that they should have won, and the experience didn't show. And the experience on the OKC side of, you know, and on the OKC team did show that they looked like they were vets out there leading that comeback. So when I said at the start of this series, or I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before, that these 2 stars on the Mavericks are going to have to perform to beat this Thunder team, and now they are not, the Thunder are going to win. And Tyson says, oh yeah, next game, Kyrie's going to do this, Kyrie's going to do that.
Well, they don't necessarily have to perform because we've seen Kyrie didn't obviously perform. Lucas doing average, and Washington step and they still win. So they don't necessarily have to these stars out there.
I understand. I understand that, but they both didn't perform to this game. So it's got to be one of them, or it's got to be both of them. They haven't shown this experience, especially last game. Luka Doncic, with the ball, is a magical player. Without the ball in his hand, he is horrid. He is awful. He stands there in the corner doing nothing. Doesn't move, doesn't look at the... It's like he's not looking at the basketball court. When the players, the role players on this Mavericks team see Luka with the ball, they get out the way. But when he doesn't have the ball, this team, in my opinion, breaks down because Luka is standing there doing nothing. And the players have nothing. The role players need this leader. And Kyrie Irving's not doing it because he's dropping 9 points. So I just think all this experience we're talking about, we aren't seeing it. And OKC are going to win next game, in my opinion, because Shai is balling and the OKC look more polished in that clutch period.
Yeah, listen, I will agree. Shai is looking very, very, very scary. And I think the thing that the Dallas Mavericks did is Shai was so effective getting into the paint in the first few games of this series. They literally just said, we're going to clog the paint. And Shai was just like, okay, I'm just going to pick you apart from the midi and just absolutely just rain jumpers on your head. And they could not do anything. He was hitting him from behind the backboard, from the sideline.
Ooh.
Man, seriously, you could have given it to him from the tunnel like Steph Curry does in his warm-ups. He probably would have made a one from there if he was fading away like he does in every other goddamn shot he takes.
Not a three-point shooter.
Okay. Well, listen, he's balling. Okay. And Oscar, I completely agree with everything. I'm pretty much everything you said. And I think this is the adjustment that Dallas need to make in this series is when Doncic doesn't have the ball, I believe it does break down, but it depends who does have the ball. Because if you're Kyrie Irving and you have 11 field goals attempted, because 4 of 11 isn't that efficient, but it's also like if Kyrie had taken 20 shots, that could end up being 10 of 20 or 11 of 20 or 12 of 20. And that's an efficient game. But when you have PJ Washington, who granted is playing well, taking 19 shots, but more importantly, Derrick Jones Jr. taking more shots than Kyrie Irving, that is not a recipe for success. And if that happens in the rest of this series, then Dallas are going to lose if Derrick Jones Jr. takes more shots than Kyrie Irving. Kyrie needs to be more assertive like he was in the Clippers series. And that begs the question as to why is he not being more assertive? And it's because a lot of the times the ball, and credit to Oklahoma defensively, the ball is finding its way to the role players, but it needs to find its way more to Kyrie Irving because I don't think any of them can... Like, Shai's a very good defender, but I don't think he can lock down Kyrie Irving for a whole game. And not... Like, especially when Shai's doing so much on the offensive side of the ball, Kyrie is the key to this series, just like he was in the Clippers series, because when Doncic couldn't cook, Kyrie said, okay, give me the rock, okay? And I know it's not the Clippers, Oscar, it's the Thunder, but if Kyrie can be more assertive on the offensive end, like we know he can be, this is the key for for Dallas, because they have been able to win in the Clippers series and in this series despite Doncic's poor performances, which we know he is dealing with the injury, but it's not an excuse. But they need to step up to play better in the performances. In saying that, if Dallas decide to also shoot free throws like they're a JV high school team, then they are going to lose because if they shoot 70% from free throws, which is still below average, this game might not even be close in the fourth quarter because they just kept on bricking and bricking and bricking and bricking and bricking. I do not even know a team that shot just above 50% in the playoffs. Okay, and I tried to look it up and I couldn't really find anything because it's just, you just don't see, you just don't, exactly. But they If they lose this series, they're going to look at this game and say, oh my God, we shot 51% from the free throw line. We lost because of that. Because they completely blew the game. And they let OKC and Shai back into the game. That's all I have to say.
I think that also comes down to this experience that has somewhere gone off with the Fairies, because it comes down in the clutch moments to experience shooting those shots. You know, you have Doncic, Luka Doncic, an MVP candidate. It's in some people's minds should have won the goddamn thing, missing clutch free throws to maybe win you the game.
Well, yes, he's 68% for the series.
Yeah, so we're always talking about this experience, Luka, but it comes down to exactly that in these clutch moments to win you the goddamn game. And
which is why I still think Dallas are going to win the series, because it's a long series, Oscar.
I completely agree it's a long series, and I personally think either team could take this series. I think it's slightly pushed in the Thunder's favour because they're coming off a very big win, and Shai's coming off a very big game, their star player, but you were talking about this experience. I really think that goes out the window because this experience has gone out the window. This experience has gone out the window that we're talking about. You know, you got Kyrie Irving, who's one of the most experienced players in the league, shooting 11 shots. That's a credit to Shai because he had to pass the goddamn ball.
That's an adjustment that's not hard to make.
When you've got an all-defensive guy like Shai on your team, who was, defensive. I think you got a vote for Defensive Player of the Year or something from someone. He's a really, really good defender, and it's credit to him making Kyrie pass the ball more and be that more of a playmaker role, which I don't think helps Dallas at all. Making him pass to that role player. That's all I got. I really don't think Dallas are in the mindset to win the next game or the mindset to win this series right now. I think there needs to be a change. So I've got the Thunder.
Obviously needs to be a change, but they did win the 2 games before, and then only this game lose 4 after shooting very poor from the free throw line. I think small adjustments need to be changed, and they're right back on track.
Game 2, Kyrie got 9 points as well.
But I'm saying,
and who won?
And they still won.
I understand
That's
that.
what I'm saying.
No, but I understand that.
And who won?
I understand who won, but I'm just saying, if you're going to keep having these bad performances, it's not. I think the Thunder's got the edge.
Listen, but Kyrie can flip the switch. Okay, we know that. If there's one player who we know can go from just doing nothing to all of a sudden playing like Michael Jordan, it's Kyrie, and he can just become unstoppable. So it's not like we're talking about a very special type of player here who has shown the ability to come up big and to flip that switch. Because not everyone can do it, but we know he can.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. I just don't see it. I don't see this Mavericks team, especially after what I saw last game, and them choke the game. I don't see them winning the series. I really, really can't see it. I think the Thunder have got the edge.
I still disagree, but we've seen the Mavericks role players be very consistent over the whole series. You got Derrick Jones Jr., defensive man, blocking, switching, rotating, shooting the occasional 3. PJ Washington, Tim Hardaway's been great off the bench, by the way. He's been shooting lights out.
Since he came back from injury.
He's been balling. Lively too. There's enough to hide away Kyrie's performance, but we're still, that's what I'm saying, experience, because we know who Kyrie is. And when they have Kyrie back to what Kyrie's doing, the team's deadly.
But it still has to happen. We're talking about things that are going may happen in the future.
Well, it's a 7-game series, so
you can say that for both. You can say that for both sides. Listen, you hate me comparing it to the Clippers, but I predicted the Mavericks in 6. It's going to happen the same way again. They're going to go into Oklahoma City. They're going to win Game 5. They're going to come back to Dallas and close it out in 6 games. And then I'm going to have a very hard time picking who I want in the NBA Finals out of Dallas and Denver.
Yeah, well, This is a question for you, Luca, and I know you're the host of this. If it was, you're Knicks all the way, are you? You're Knicks all. You're Knicks all the way.
What do you mean all the way? As in all the way to the Larry O'Brien, or what?
As a fan of the fan, not as an analyst, as a fan, would you want to see the Knicks versus Denver?
Well,
no, Knicks versus Dallas. Sorry.
Sure. Why wouldn't I want to see that?
And who would you pick out of those two?
Well, I don't think the Knicks are going to get to the finals.
No, me either. But if they were,
I would no. Denver would beat the Knicks in the finals.
No, Dallas. I'm talking about Dallas.
Oh, Dallas.
Yeah.
Look, it's going 7. It's going 7. It's going 7. It's going 7. Look.
What a finals that would be as well.
That would be a great finals. Well, listen, I'm not gonna say who's gonna win in case that does happen to be the NBA finals. Okay, I would tell you it will be a 7-game series though if it is the NBA finals matchup, and I would need to look into it. But I would go 7 games.
Okay.
But do I think the Knicks are gonna go to the finals?
In 4.
They could.
Well, listen.
Gonna be the
I said they're going to go to the conference finals. My fandom, well, we'll see if my emotions get the better of me. But as far as I'm concerned, my fandom might stop once they get to the conference finals.
That's crazy. A lifetime Clippers fan, by the way.
I adopted the Knicks when I said they were making the conference finals. Okay.
Lifetime Clippers fan.
Okay. Anyway, listen, we will be back in a few days. Likely, the way it's heading, the conference finals will probably have already started by the time we do the next episode. There's a chance if we get in quick for the audience, we might be there for Game 7, depending on how it works out. But thank you all for tuning in to Priceless Takes, episode 57. It has been a pleasure today doing this episode with you boys. Oscar and Tyson, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Make sure to follow us on our social media for all highlights from the show as well as basketball news. We have daily social media posts on Instagram and on TikTok. Both of those will be in the description. Thank you all for tuning in to Priceless Takes, episode 57. I am your host, Luca Price, and we will see you next time.